Pod SaaS, where we're putting the SaaS back in SaaSy. Sponsored by LeadrPro, where you can book demos with target customers on demand and fill your sales pipeline instantly.
Welcome to another episode of Pod SaaS. Today we have Sagi Rodin from Frontegg, based in Tel Aviv, correct?
Yep.
How are you doing?
Great. Awesome. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So before we kind of do what we like to call a series of rapid fire questions, just to get to know Sagi as a person, but before we do that, tell us a little bit, about give us like the elevator pitch about Frontegg and who really makes a great customer for you guys.
Yeah. So Frontegg is a user management platform that was built for the product-led era. We provide a blazing fast integration of powerful user management infrastructure designed for modern SaaS applications that would like to go to market fast with a self-serve product. Today, we support app builders by covering all the way from very fundamental authentication flows up to the most complex customer use cases, like supporting permissions and roles management, API token administration, subscription management, and much more. So basically, you integrate our capabilities into your product, and thus you can go to market much faster with the product that kind of, otherwise would have taken you like few years to build at the best. And yeah, so that's the idea. Most of the companies that are working with us are fast-growing SaaS companies in different spaces. So you see companies in the cyberspace, you see companies in the fintech, developer platforms, whatever SaaS space that is probably you see there out there today.
Got it. Very cool. It's somewhat of a niche space, and it seems like you guys are pretty dominant force in that niche space. It's almost like kind of like an out-of-box solution for companies like SaaS companies to shortcut go to market almost to a certain degree, which I can see being tremendously valuable, especially if you are really great at what you guys have already developed, and as opposed to it having that learning curve of coding and developing for 1, 2, 3+ years. They're able to just take your solution and implement it fairly fast.
Exactly. I think that there's a lot of changes that happened in the last few years, especially in the last year. We see the product-led motion that is kind of becoming really popular and is a trend. But I would say that it's not only a buzzword, to raise money for a startup, because I think that modern products today, they will have to adapt and become much more flexible in order to support different kind of users that come their way. And I think that, the boundary between selling to enterprise and selling to a startup has become very loose. If you look like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, most of the organizations could kind of put themselves in a bucket that says, okay, I sell to enterprise, I sell to mid-market, I sell to SMB. And today, I think that most of the organizations at the beginning, they basically don't know. So they have to serve different types of customers. And the thing is that each and one of those go-to-market motions has its own impacts on the product and the engineering teams, because if you support SMB, the SMB will have to have some kind of management features within their apps, and if you support enterprise, those would have to have different set of capabilities. A user that enters your app through self-service sign-up can belong to a giant organization with complex structures and policies, or to a startup. And basically you have to support all of that. We kind of provide this unfair advantage of having your product to support all of these motions, regardless which one you go, in a very fast integration. And I think that's why customers like us. We help them move faster and kind of have the freedom to explore their go-to market.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, I'm very curious as to diving into that in a little bit how you guys figure out who your persona types are. How early do you go in terms of like identifying opportunities and things like that? So before we get there, though, I want to get to know you a little bit more. So do our listeners and viewers. So if you're up for it, we have a series of just like rapid fire questions. Nothing too crazy, nothing too personal, but just for us to get to know you better.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Cool. Do you have a favorite entrepreneur or like a startup story?
Yeah, I would say that, obviously I admire the work that Elon Musk is doing. So, it's probably not too unique, but, the man is doing some amazing stuff and you can definitely learn from him, especially him being like in every detail of what happens, but still allowing his executives to kind of take control over their own departments. I think this is something that is definitely admirable, especially, we always feel these challenges as CEOs and founders to kind of, stay in the details, but embrace your people to kind of move forward on their own and make decisions and make mistakes, right? So that's what I would pick.
Yeah, definitely an art to letting go of different processes, and especially if as the early days, as a founder, you wear a lot of hats and you feel like a lot of the aspects of a business inside and out. And so how do you start delegating a lot of that? I think is in and of itself a growing pain and also an art form that a lot of founders have to go through. Literally just go through that experience to start like, oh, okay, I need to be hands off here, more hands on here, and understanding how to manage your bandwidth in a way that is reciprocal to the team that you're building. It's definitely something that I've experienced and a lot of the founders I've spoken to have gone through. That said, going back to when you're maybe like 8, 9, 10 years old, do you remember what you wanted to be as a kid?
Oh, wow. 10 years old. I think that I always wanted to lead people and kind of have some level of guidance and help people to do that. And that's also what I try to do. Like as of then, I see always my kid, like 6 years old. He asks me always are you the commander? Are you the chief, of your army and stuff like that? And I guess, that's probably the type of question that I asked my parents when I was small.
Very interesting. Here's a little bit more deeper question, but do you have a most painful experience? And this can be personal or professional. And the reason why I ask this is because I feel like a lot of pivotal moments for personal or professional growth tends to come from very uncomfortable situations or a painful experience of some sort. And we come out of it through stronger by learning a lot through those types of experiences. Anything that you can think of that's kind of like been instrumental in your adult life?
I think that, since early days, I've been working quite hard in different type of jobs. And I think from every job that I worked at, I kind of learned, okay, what are the type of things I like in that job? What are the type of things I don't like? And kind of work my way from there. If looking at the certain situation that happened, just recently, I think that I can tell about a new employee that joined us and had some intense conversation, intense discussion, and they left the room crying. So that's something that was pretty tough. And obviously, that's not a situation that you want to to happen to anybody. At the end of the day, we all learn from these experiences, and you have to learn that people take things in a different way. And also, I think that as founders, as managers, right? It doesn't matter if you're founding an organization. As long as you're managing people or working with people, you kind of have to adjust and see where they're coming from. And this is something that you can learn, almost in any situation during your lifetime, right? You don't have to be at a startup or even in a tech organization. And that's something that I think I learned from early days, and what made me, a better manager, a better parent, right, and a better human being overall.
Yeah, I mean, one of the mottos that I have with what we do as a growth marketing company is like always leading with empathy, and I think that's something that serves us very well and actually makes us successful at what we do. Is because in the B2B SaaS space, there hasn't traditionally been a ton of empathy or humanizing of to the go-to-market motions or sales and marketing departments, and I feel like that's really important and critical because at the end of the day, even though there might be top or bottom line ROI from your product, you are still servicing human experiences. So that top line is either going to help, humans have a better quality of life, or if it's improving bottom line margins or saving people time, it's allowing individuals to then, have more bandwidth to spend at home or make a conscious decision to go and reinvest their time building the company and growing the company. But it still all goes back to those human experiences. And that relates to another question I have here, which is like, how important is emotional intelligence or the idea of EQ in the hiring process, or even just like as part of like building the company culture for you?
Yeah, so I think that the answer is very important. Like, I think one of the most important things. Today we are about 40 employees. And I still ask to interview all of the employees, so I'm kind of like the last stage of the interviews, and I think that one of the most important things to see is whether the person that is going to join the organization is going to kind of help to create the environment or the culture, or contribute to the culture that you want to have in your company. So for example, I can give you an example that for us, transparency is a key value, right? So, transparency and being able to speak out and criticize, whether it's, upwards, sidewards, or downwards. And that's something that we really, really encourage. It means that, we don't have secret meetings in the company. So everything is open, and, almost any meeting, anyone can just knock on the door and ask to join this meeting. And that's something that we're trying to embrace. And obviously, when you choose like that to be a leading value, you need to understand that the people that will be joining your organizations, your organization, they should be aware, and they should be the type of person that will not make a bad thing out of it, right? Not take advantage of that transparency approach. So I think that it's really important for us, and we're doing a lot of things to kind of keep that intact.
Makes sense. I love that. That said, has there, in the early days, you guys aren't super old, right? But like, I mean, definitely like 3-4 years old, right? From my understanding.
2 years old, actually. We're
2 years old.
2 years old, yeah.
Oh, okay. So still relatively young. So I'm sure you're still, but now you've grown to 40 employees. So you're probably not wearing as many hats as you did when you first started off. But we know that founders typically will wear a lot of hats. Has there been any skill set that you picked up or along the way while wearing a lot of hats that you had like, kind of like an emotional either love-hate relationship with that you didn't expect necessarily? Maybe I know like one of the common ones is like doing the books, like the accounting stuff is pretty common. It was like a hate relationship with it, but a lot of founders have to take on that ownership in the very beginning. But I don't know if there's anything like that.
So I would say that one of the more challenging things is the communication thing. So once many people are joining your organization, you have you have the obviously the board members, right, that you report to, and you have the other stakeholders that are outside the organizations and need to be kind of aware of what's happening, and you have the employees and you have the executives that are joining, and I think that one of the things is creating the right infrastructure for communication and transparency. So we spoke about transparency, but then people taking it from the soft side for a second to the business side. People need to be aware of things that are happening, and as you have more people in your organization, there could be some devastating things that are happening if somebody is not aware of something. So take, for example, a new feature that a product is working on, and the sales are not aware that that it is happening, or the marketing people, or even your board members want to know what happened, and whether a big customer, you landed a big customer between the board meetings. So you kind of, as the CEO, you become the one that if some communication is not happening, you're at the center of this thing, because people expect for you to be the guy that that knows everything.
Yeah.
And if you're the one that knows everything, you're the one that should be like propagating this information to all directions. And I think that that's something that is challenging, right? And especially as you're growing and get more of those personas, it becomes even a bigger challenge. And that's something that I'm always learning how to do better.
Yeah. Communication and managing personalities, I feel like, is like the skill set that a lot of founders have to evolve into as a CEO, where it's like, that's not something that when you're, if you're a technical founder and you're building code and all, it's a very different set of like skill sets, than it is that. And even if you're like just coming from a sales and marketing background, then it's also still a very different set of skill sets. It's project managing and managing teams. Cool. Anything that you personally do that you go to as kind of like a decompression method, like something to relieve stress for yourself?
So I think that for me, it's always getting back home and being with the family and with the kids, watching watching my favorite TV show or something like that. That's the type of things that I like, and connecting with my best friends. For me, it's taking it like back to the basics. Yeah. That kind of relieves the stress from what's happening in the business side.
That's good. That's awesome. Reconnecting to the people and those relationships that matter to you. Got it. Last question here. It's the idea of legacy and what kind of impact you want to leave on this world once you're gone from it. I think a lot of parents with kids, and there's an interesting element around legacy with their children, and in conjunction with their business or leading with examples. So I don't know if there's anything that you have there in terms of what you want to leave in terms of the impact on this world.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say that for me, it was always about creating the foundations to help others do things in a more easy way, especially when it comes to innovating and bringing innovation to life. So, and I think that this is also the part, one of the reasons, the main reasons that we created Frontegg, because we kind of see ourselves as the one that will help others, innovate in a much more approachable and easier way in the upcoming years. And think of it, most of the great things happen from innovation. So, if there was even like this one great idea that somebody had and they had to like let it go because it was difficult for them to do some kind of, action, to build a product around it, to bring the people around it, and they just let it go and great things didn't happen because of that. I think it's a shame, right? So, so for me, it's about creating these foundations and And if that's something that I will be able to do, then that's a success.
The idea of empowering others seems like, yeah, awesome.
Definitely.
Cool. So we're done with the series of rapid fire questions, and I do have I do have some other questions though that I would like to get into. You know, prior to you starting Frontegg, and I do have a series of questions about Frontegg also. But you know, what was your work experience like before? You had mentioned briefly that you had several jobs prior to this, and Frontegg is fairly young in that sense. So what was your work life before starting Frontegg? Even before the ideation for Frontegg, but what were you doing in previous work experiences?
Yeah, so I worked in several types of organizations. So obviously, in Israel, you go to the army, and at the age of 18, most of the Israelis go at the age of 18. Mm-hmm. So basically, had the opportunity to kind of deal with databases and other technologies over there. And also to guide others on different technologies. After that, tried to go to an institute and basically started working in a small dev shop and stayed there for almost 2 years. So that was a great experience to actually, coding with the team. So up to that, I was coding, but mostly freelancing. That's the first opportunity to work at a team. Went for 4 years at the Technion, which is an Israeli Institute of Technology. Studied there, and then worked in several startups. Managed basically the R&D and technology over there. And before Frontegg, I worked 5 years at a great organization called Checkpoint, which is the largest Israeli company in the cybersecurity space, and had the privilege to kind of help the organization to build new modern applications in a more efficient way. So actually, both myself and my co-founder today, Aviad, we created a platform there that kind of empowered, as you said, others to bring products much faster within this org. That was a great experience. Had the privilege to manage quite a lot of people over there and lead. And then a bit more than 2 years ago, both of us started this journey of entrepreneurship with Frontegg.
Got it. So did you have a technical experience or background as a kid, like growing up, leading into 18? And tell me a little bit about what that was like, because it seems like you had you're pretty strong technical acumen from a young age.
Yeah. So I started to build software since I was about 14.
Okay.
Just reading a book on ASP, which was great for me because it was not the the ANSI C or Pascal or stuff like that, where you just work in front of a black screen and kind of develop on that. It was a way to actually create websites, right? So, full stack. Even before it was called full stack, you could actually do the back end, you could do the front end, and voila, you would have some kind of, product running. And then, a few years later, I started to do some projects. So actually people started to use this stuff that you do. And it was always very fascinating to me. And that's also why I have like this deep respect for full stack developers or front end developers, because I think it's the ability to kind of do the coding and bring something that is user facing or customer facing out there. It's actually the ability to create things, create products on your own almost, which always seem to be like a magical skill to have, right? So being a full stack developer since then, I've done different type of stuff except of web. So I dealt with a lot of backend and databases, with high scale applications, did some mobile development as well, and always kept myself in the knowing the whole the full stack approach. So basically being able to kind of speak on the same level with folks that do backend, do front end, do databases, do scale, security, and stuff like that. I think it's great to have this horizontal wide perspective and an ability to understand those things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't have a technical background, but I can equate it to like when I first started my first startup like 8 years ago, and you get it was like an e-commerce product. And then when you get somebody to, swipe their credit card for something that just existed in your brain and that was it. And then you brought it to fruition where an actual transaction takes place, or an action, from the UI UX perspective of like having a user actually go through an experience, take the actions that you wanted them to take, and have it almost feel like seamless or frictionless. That in and of itself, I feel like from the technical and then also from somebody who's a non-technical perspective, like sales or marketing perspective, like that's kind of, I feel like that first taste of like what that experience is like. And you either really love it and you want more of it and you want to like be really, really good at it. I think that's kind of where a lot of these entrepreneurs get like that first nugget of what drives them towards one path or another. So I strongly feel connected to that. Cool. And so you guys started the idea for Frontegg. Was this during your time at Checkpoint? You realized that there was this opportunity because you had talked about, you were developing something in-house already for Checkpoint. And then was it like, hey, we could actually build a business off of what we're building here?
So, at the end of the day, I pitched Checkpoint like 6 years ago that, look at all of the apps that we're building today, and we'll probably build a lot more later. They all have like this similar features and characteristics and experiences. I think that most of the challenge there was kind of to create this unified experience for the end user that uses different applications within from one vendor like Checkpoint. And you have this the same challenge kind of happening in a lot of enterprises that build like multi-applications and acquire companies, right? So at one point you have like all these apps that kind of speak different languages, have different user management, different subscription management, and stuff like that. So that was kind of the challenge there. I think that maybe the surprise or not was to see that, even if you have to build one product, so you don't have the challenge, of multi-application, because a startup basically starts with one product, the challenge still exists, right? And it affects the happiness of your developers that have to deal with a lot of infrastructural things and management features and stuff like that, where they really want to deal with the innovation, with the core innovation, the core product. It affects the go-to-market, right? So you can go much slower to market and stay behind your competitors. It affects the efficiency of how you deploy your resources. It affects the user experience. So the users are, they expect like experience at the Slack level or Google Workspace or Zoom, because those have kind of like established the standard around user experience and self-service, and they don't get it. So there's a lot of tension there, and I think that this is what we learned, and this is kind of where we applied this to startups and to companies that are 2 years, 3 years old. That's the type of companies that we see today.
Yeah. So let's go back to that time when you and your co-founder make the decision where you need to leave Checkpoint to start this business. Like, what was that feeling like? Because obviously it's like it's leaving something very stable, like you're saying, largest tech company in Israel, right? So it's like, how do you make that decision? You're probably in a very comfortable, stable situation, making a good living, and then going off to do something on your own. Did you have any like proof points or validation points that gave you like that confidence to make the jump? Did you have any kind of like early commitments, verbal or otherwise, that's like, hey, if you build this, we would sign with this, or we would pay for this, or anything like that?
So I think that, there was a lot of thoughts around, how validated some idea should be for you to kind of jump all into it, right? And that's, I think, a question of that a lot of people that work at stable environments ask themselves, like, okay, should I? So for one person, this would be like a term sheet for a seed round, and for the other it would be 3 customers that are saying that, or 3 design partners. I think that once you kind of understand that that a few requirements, maybe prerequisites are met, you should jump all in. And that's usually I would say around, first of all, you should have the support from your surroundings, right? Because you're not alone in this journey, and people think that they're alone maybe in if you're married and with kids, then it's the family that should support you. And if you're younger than that, you should have like other family or friends supporting you. It's very, very important because the journey is hard. So that's one thing. I think that the second thing is I really believe that you should have a lot of passion around what you're going to do. And even if the concept itself, it's not really validated, I think that the passion should be there. So you shouldn't be doing something just because it's a hot space today, or there's a lot of money around that, or it's easy to. I think you should be very connected to what you're doing. I think that today, with the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, I wouldn't be able to go through this if this wasn't something that I really love, from deep in my heart. And the third thing I think is the partner. So for me to find the right partner to work with, it's so important, right? So the co-founder that you're going to have is almost it's not almost, it's a family, right? So it's like you will support each other on the good and on the bad sides of the journey, the ups and downs, and I think it's super important. So if you have these 3 terms met, I think that it's enough to kind of decide that you're going to go all in on that. But different people have different opinions about it, and I think yes, that there's no single truth.
Yeah, but that's what it was for you then, right? It was like having your family support, having an idea that you're really, really passionate about, and having the right co-founder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to those points. I mean, yes, there are others where it's like, hey, I need to have this much in my bank account and have the right idea that I'm passionate about, right? And maybe they don't need necessarily the right co-founder, but I see those things a lot. So when you guys go out and you decide to go and start this, when did you have an idea? Was it like an aha moment, or that idea validation, right? So like product market fit is huge. Obviously, we hear that all the time within the startup ecosystem. But what did that look like for you? And or are you there yet? I mean, I know you guys recently raised a round, so like I'm assuming that you have some semblance of what that might look like already. So yeah, tell me about what that looks like for Frontegg.
Yeah. So first of all, I think that if that's what I hear also from more advanced companies, there is a moment where you feel that you gain some repetitivity around the different processes. But I think there's never a moment where you kind of lay down and say, "Wow, okay, that's great. That's accomplished." Check. Yeah. So there's it's just always taking it to the next level, right? So I'd say that at the beginning it was around finding the design partner. So we kind of set a rule at the beginning that we don't build anything that we don't have a customer that is going to use immediately. And obviously we created like our own roadmap that comes from our experience and our vision, and we wouldn't like build stuff that are not somewhere around that, right? But we always strive to have like at least 1 or 2 design partners at the beginning that would use what we're building. I think it's very important. I think it's a great approach. I think that you should also treat it carefully, right? Because it could lead to, you know, this to making also decisions that are based, you know, on a specific customer that might be not representing the whole market. So so obviously it should be treated carefully. And we've done stuff. I can tell you that, you know, we did stuff that are that, you know, we left at the closed beta or stuff like that, that sometimes are still being used maybe, but we chose not to scale them out yet. And we might be doing that, but not yet. We didn't feel that it was a successful enough or a good opportunity to kind of make something bigger out of it. Obviously, you know, at one point you do feel that, you know, you gain some repetitivity. So, you know, you create some kind of messaging around what you're doing, around the value, and you learn to ask the right questions, that if the answer for them is you know, the same, or, you know, the answer that you expect, then it's probably a fit. And when you realize that those answers are you know, are positive, and the conditions are met, you learn also how to make the process smooth in taking this to the next step and the next step afterwards. And that's something that that is always like evolving. I think that also each step is you know, it's kind of a challenge on its own. So it's never like one thing. It's there are customers that need POC, so you need to learn to make a quick POC. There are customers that have different requests, or you know, weird requests outside your roadmap. You should learn how to deal with those. So there's always there are customers that don't want to pay, or have like this legal request. So you learn how to deal with those. So you gain like all those you know, all these experiences, and then you can, you know, you already can do some things more automatically and move things forward much faster. So that's something that is happening.
Got it. Awesome. And tell me about, like, you know, when you did go out and raise, what was your funding process look like? Did you guys bootstrap from the beginning? Did you raise a pre-seed round? You know, and then kind of like getting to some of that validation points again, you know, when did you start feeling confident enough to go raising a Series A? Just walking through, I think, like those steps for other like early stage founders that's maybe like developing a more sophisticated or complicated product. Like how should they be thinking about the fundraising process? And by using you as an example, perhaps.
Yeah, so we basically raised a pre-seed round when we just started, and it was a fairly small round, and the idea was to getting started with some design partners, and raise a quick seed round. So in total, we raised $5 million on our seed. And it happened like around I would say 6 months after starting the company and starting to work on it. We already had a few design partners back then. Obviously, we didn't have any paying customers there yet, right? So we started to build the product, and about a bit more than half a year, so I would say that around 7 months ago, we closed our Series A. Obviously, the Series A, we already had paying customers, and we had some, you know, as you would call it, like some fit or some repetitivity happening around getting new customers. So, you know, I always say that on the funding side, there are a few things that are important. So first of all, you should understand that it's not only about the money. So some say that it's only about the money. I say that you know, it's a lot about getting the right partners to join you, because especially at the early days, they will have effect on the business, and you should kind of treat that really carefully. So not just taking money from anyone. Because, you know, there's a lot of money out there today, but I always say that it's about finding the right partners to kind of join you and move towards the next step, help you move towards the next step. So for us, for example, the expansion to the US was very important. and getting more US companies and employees. So, picking our Series A VC, which is Insight Partners, it was very, very important for us to have somebody that, has a strong foundation in the US, right? And our board member, Praveen from Insight, is sitting in the Valley. Obviously someone that is helping us a lot already. And it was also important to get a type of person that is familiar with product orientation. So for us, we're a product-led company, so the product is very important. So we also try to bring somebody on board that is, that is product-led itself, like, and can contribute to the product thinking. So I would really say that it's important to understand who is the person and how they're going to help you kind of achieve your next goals. And the second thing I think is that I wouldn't say that there is one set of items or set of questions around what I need to have in order to raise a round, because I think it really depends on the type of companies.
Yeah,
we're seeing like great companies with even like a significant amount of revenues, and they're, it's harder for them to raise a round from good VCs. We're seeing companies today that don't have any revenues and kind of raising a huge round. So different spaces, different stories, different vision around what could happen. So you should really take into account all of those things.
For sure. Cool. Last question as we wrap things up here, because we're rounding up on the hour, but where would you like to see Frontegg be in the next 5 years, right? Do you feel like there's going to be some sort of, exit strategy there, or do you feel like you really see yourself committing to Frontegg for the next 8-10 years to really reach the maximum potential of what you started off doing?
Yeah, I think that the opportunity is huge. I think that when we started, we didn't even understand how big it is.
Yeah.
And I think that the last year with the whole, PLG movement and that companies want to become self-served is basically telling us, right on, you're on a good path, and what you're doing is great. And we hear it from customers that are using our platform and asking for more modules, more self-serve capabilities within our platform. So the vision here is grand, and I think that looking at other industries, like for example e-commerce, where if you're starting an e-commerce business today, you will basically choose between some kind of platform, right? That you wouldn't build things from scratch. Or starting a B2B website, you will have Squarespace or Wix. But if you're building a SaaS product, you don't have something like that today. And I think that Frontegg kind of sees itself going into that direction and allowing more and more frictionless building of a SaaS product. This, it's a grand vision. So I think we're just kind of busy in getting there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for speaking with us. As somebody who is now very much immersed in SaaS, I can appreciate your product and your solution. And then making, almost like the Squarespace for SaaS, I can see the huge value add of something like that. It is a very big vision, obviously very complicated to build, but I just kind of applaud the effort, and it goes again back to, I think, some of those things that you're talking about in terms of what you are hoping to do as a kid, in terms of leading by example, leading by design, and it seems like you're doing that. So congratulations on the success so far, and nothing but the best in terms of future success.
Thank you very much, Chris. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.